Good morning, this is the Fat Health Teacher. The first order of business for this video is to let you know that I'm not doing my weekly check-ins on Monday anymore. I am going to move them to Wednesday. This will allow my check-in to correspond with my weekly check-in at the doctor's office. And I think it'll be a little less stressful for me simply because doing a weigh-in right after the weekend, which is when I'm most likely to cheat, does not give me good results. And I'm going to work on stepping up my game, but we'll have that conversation on Wednesday. Okay, so the topic of today's video is first, panic attack management. Okay, so like your emergency reactions. And second is going to be stress management. Now, before I start in on my recommendations, I want to say that how you cope with your own stress and how you cope with panic attacks it could be very different from what I'm going to explain, and it's very important because we are all individuals for you to find a method that works for you. So some of the methods that work for me that I'm going to share may not work for you, and that's okay. You just need to find what works for you, and these are some simple suggestions. These are suggestions that I give to some of my students. Unfortunately, in the middle school level, stress is felt. It's compounded by going through puberty. It's compounded by all of the changes, going from an elementary school where you were in a single classroom for most of the day, and now you are transitioning to multiple classes during the day. You are being exposed to a lot more students. You're being exposed to more teachers. Things are very different. Your interactions with your parents may be different. So these are also things that I recommend to my students if they have reached out to let me know that they're having a rough time. All right. So first, panic attacks. Now, I didn't experience my first, I think, genuine panic attack until like about 2.5 years ago. Okay. And when it happened, it was very scary. Basically, what happened is my body reacted like there was a threat, and it reacted very strongly. But rather than going into a fight or flight, where I was able to focus more and I was able to analyze and figure out what I was going to do, which is my normal reaction to emergent situations, my heart rate accelerated. I was having trouble breathing. I would cry. It was really bad because I felt like I couldn't control it. And I won't go into what was causing the panic attacks, but I will say they were awful. And until I had actually experienced one, I really didn't understand them because it is such an overwhelming feeling. My primary recommendation on this, if you are having a panic attack, so this would be kind of an emergency response type thing, is first, hopefully you have somebody that you can talk to. Second, focus on your breathing. One of the best things that worked for me, if focused breathing didn't work, and by focused breathing I mean you're actually counting. So you're breathing in, and you're slowly breathing out. Okay? So you're focusing on your breathing. This is going to force your body to start to slow down. But if you're unable to do that, another thing that works is if you are able to go for a walk. If you can be distracted. So one of the things that my partner did during a particularly difficult panic attack is that we walked and he asked me about future plans. And talking to me about future plans really helped me to exit the moment that was causing the attack. It helped a lot. The breathing helped a lot. You can also discuss if your head is there. You might discuss, and definitely after the panic attack has resolved, why. And sometimes we don't know, and it takes a little bit for us to get to the root of it. And It's this whole thought process thing, and we may not even realize what's happening. Um, in my case, what was causing the panic attack was a fear of what was going to happen in the future. And it was a fear of something that I couldn't control and something that was incredibly terrifying to me. I believe that that's what was causing my panic attacks. So I would do the focused breathing. My partner would be there. Uh, he would let me call him at work, which was really nice. Instead of saying, hey, I'm at work and I can't talk, he was making time for me, which was very important. Having that person that you can reach out to who can help you cope and help you calm down is very important. Other methods that worked are bringing yourself into the moment. So I had yet another friend that I called during one of my panic attacks, and his method in order to get me to calm down was to walk outside and describe things without judgment. So this is really hard, right? I remember walking outside and he said, describe your yard to me. And I said, it's trashed, it's messy, and it's awful. And so I was kind of assigning judgment. He corrected me. He said, no, describe your yard. What do you see? And so then I shifted to, I see a barn, I see a door, I see 3 garden plots, I see weeds, I see a chair. So you're focusing on describing things. This can help. If you are somebody who likes to listen to music, you can have a couple of pieces of music that cheer you up all the time. Mine are One Night in Bangkok, which is kind of a silly song about chess. And then my other one is Why Nerdy. If I hear either of these songs, it's really hard for me to stay angry. Even if I'm having a bad day or if I'm in the midst of a panic attack. The other thing that can work is if I have something that I can hold on, something I can hold on to, something I can touch, then I'm going to describe it. I'm going to describe it like I'm describing it to somebody who can't touch it, who can't see it, any of those things. This becomes a bit challenging, right? Well, I'm holding a teddy bear. Okay. What does it look like? How big is it? What's the color? Does it have any clothes on? Does it have button eyes or does it have sewn eyes? You're describing absolutely everything. You're using all of your senses, right? What do I smell? What do I hear? What do I feel? I don't recommend licking the teddy bear, but that's another thing that you could do, right? So these are all like, I'm panicking and I don't know what to do, so I gotta handle it right now. Okay? And the goal is to get you back to a state of calm so that you can process. I have done quite a bit of counseling, which I'm not ashamed to discuss. And I think it's very important to understand that counseling is not that you are weak. Counseling is about giving you additional tools. Okay? When I first sought out counseling, I actually had a very hard time going to counseling. I had a very hard time with this idea that I was weak and that I couldn't deal on my own because I was supposed to be mentally tough and things like this were just not supposed to be an issue. Okay? Good friends, good counselors have all helped me in order to move beyond that, right? And I know that you've seen this part before. If you had a broken leg, you're not going to try to walk it off, right? You're going to go to a doctor and you're going to get it taken care of. With psychological or mental things, it's the same thing. And sometimes it's not anything that you can control. It's not that you're being irrational. It's not that you're being crazy. It's that your brain chemistry might be a little off. It is that your brain is responding to things that maybe you're not noticing on a conscious level, but it's there for your brain to process. Okay. The methods that worked for me were cognitive behavioral therapy, and there's also dialectical behavioral therapy. I actually preferred the DBT, or the dialectical behavior therapy, because it was about creating a wise mind. And it's not a pure logical thing. It's not, okay, why were you feeling that way? And you're only looking at the logic behind it. It was also about processing the feeling and accepting that that feeling is there and this is what we can do with it, right? So acknowledging it. I think one of the worst things that we can do to each other is to say, get over it. It's not a big deal. Why are you still struggling? You've been divorced for 4 years. I think that's a terrible thing for us to do to each other. Invalidation can also be very damaging. And I've seen this happen to some of my students. They report to their parents that they are having some difficulties in class or they feel like they're being bullied. And their stress levels can get really, really high. And then when they talk to their parents are like, "What are you talking about? This is the thing that bugs me the most. Other people have it worse than you." All right? And this kind of leads you down this path where you're thinking, the stuff that's happening to me really isn't that big a deal. What's wrong with me? I don't get this. And then it's not a healthy path. It's not. Invalidating somebody's feelings are not okay. All right? You may not understand why they're feeling that way in reaction to whatever it is that's happened, but that's how they're feeling, and it needs to be processed from where they are, not from where you think they should be. Okay? So let's move on to long-term stress management. The methods that work for me for long-term stress management that I'm actually developing now are reading and vlogging, which is what I'm doing now. I also find it helpful, this has worked for me in the past, to write down everything. So I'll have some nights where I'm trying to sleep and I've just got like all this stuff swirling around in my head, and it's things that I want to remember, it's things that I'm worried about, it's just like there's so much up here that I can't sleep. Like I can't just get my body to be quiet and to be calm so that I can move on. Now, I might try doing focused, like imaging type stuff. I actually learned this from my cousin. And what you do is you have your eyes closed and you picture the number 1. And much like describing the teddy bear, you are looking at and you're trying to visualize exactly how that number 1 looks like. Okay, so does it look like, so let me see. Does it look like is it like this? Or does it have that little hook thing here and then the base on it? Is it 3-dimensional? Does it spin? That kind of thing. And what you're doing is as you're imagining the number, you are imagining it, you're holding on to it until it disappears. And once you can't hold on to the number 1 anymore, you move on to the number 2. And you're doing the same thing. What does it look like? We know that numbers can be written in very different ways. So what does it look like? Does it look like it's a type? Like it's a typed number 2? Does it have a nice little round thing? Is it 3-dimensional? So does it have depth? Exactly what does it look like? And this has always worked much better for me than counting sheep ever did. If that doesn't work, and if I'm still struggling, I may try putting on some music. So for me, being the geek nerd that I am, I might put on, use the Pandora Star Wars channel, which is really cool because they have like some instrumental, like guitar versus violin and piano work, and it's really fun to listen to. And the idea is that you have something that is not challenging to listen to, but that you can actually focus on the notes and you can listen for the different instruments. At least for me, this is what's working. Now, if that's still not working, and I do have times where that doesn't work, I will do an information dump. And basically what that means is I am going to either get on the computer and write a blog, and my blog is actually, it's out there, but it's not like pushed out. So like the search results are not going to show up in Google and stuff like that. So this is a sort of private place for me to express my emotions and that kind of thing. And so what I do is I just write everything out, right? It's kind of like a stream of consciousness. It just goes. And then once I have everything down, I can be assured that I'm not going to forget anything, that I've got all of my concerns written down, and now I can rest comfortably. And it's surprising to me how often this has worked. This has worked very well for me in the past. Um, Long-term management, so you have your exercise recommendations, right? You can go to the gym, you can walk, you can run, you can um, just anything that gets you up and moving. Don't forget that if it is the middle of winter and you have been spending a lot of time inside, sometimes just getting outside and having the sun hit you and seeing the daylight can boost your mood, right? This is a scientific finding. You can try journaling, you can try doing videos, creating things. I find that creating or learning is a really good distractor for me. So if I'm reading something, one of the things, so you know that I'm working on mindset. I've actually got about 20 pages left, and I'm also going to be reading this book. I took it with me when I went to get my MRI, and I only got a couple pages in, but I got to tell you, I already know this is going to be a fantastic book, and I cannot wait to read the rest of it in order to see what I can learn and apply and connect. I love learning. I absolutely love it. When I'm in a funk, I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to do anything, and I certainly don't want to talk to people. But doing these things actually helps. I've recently started to crochet, and it's, I haven't actually done it in probably a week, but it's a nice kind of meditative thing. Like, you're focused on it, and you can still talk to people. You can still sort of pay attention to a movie if that's what you want to do, but it keeps you occupied, right? And it keeps your focus. Other things that work for me, I'm actually not one of those people who is able to release a lot of stress by beating things up or damaging things or destroying things. But I have found that productive destruction is it's rewarding. You have the physical exhaustion that comes with whatever it is that you're trying to do. So a couple of years ago, that involved taking out the pinyon tree. Not pinyon. What was it? I had this big bushy tree out in the front yard, and it destroyed my water line. I had to dig out my entire supply line coming from the street to the house and replace it, and I was not happy with that tree. And so instead of just cutting it back, I actually completely cut off everything. And it was very rewarding to have the clippers or to have the chainsaw and to just see it continue to get smaller and smaller. And now there's a stump out there, and at some point I'm going to have to deal with the stump. But it was nice. Okay, it was productive. I would be tired, and it was helpful because there are multiple people in this house who are allergic to that type of tree. Oh, juniper. That was the one I was looking for. So there are several people in the household who are allergic to it, and removing it actually helped with our allergies, which was also nice. My current physical expenditure destruction project is to take out a big concrete block that's in the backyard. I've made quite a bit of progress. I don't get to do more than about an hour at a time of working on it a day, just because of the intensity that is required in order to do it. And that's because I'm swinging a 10-pound sledge, and then I'm going in and I'm using a crowbar and a hammer in order to pull the parts. Once I actually get this concrete block broken up, then the physical expenditure is going to come from actually hauling the pieces of concrete to different areas of my yard in order to kind of shore up some things that I'm concerned about. So, what else works? Oh, watching favorite movies. All right. Labyrinth, fantastic movie. It, much like the song White and Nerdy, it puts me in a good mood. I very much enjoy it. Princess Bride is another go-to. The Star Wars movies work for me, simply because the music is absolutely amazing. Yeah, or you might even, go down the bad 80s movies kind of thing. So Goonies, I rediscovered Toy Soldiers, which is a fun movie, but the uncut version that is never on TV. Yeah, totally not appropriate for a kid, but that's okay. What else do I do in order to manage? Oh, massage, right? Massage is so helpful. You get the human contact and you get some of the stress relief, which is really nice. Most of my stress in my shoulders, and sometimes my partner is just massaging because he can, which is awesome. And he'll reach my neck or he'll reach my shoulders and he'll comment on it. He's like, "Wow, you are really tight." Okay, and that's because that's where I carry my stress. Um, so these are things that I can use. Um, you might be somebody who writes. Maybe you're writing a book, or maybe you're drawing pictures, or you're creating videos, maybe watching YouTube. There is a ton of content out there on YouTube. Now, if you find that you are still having difficulties, even though you are using your own personal methods that should be working for you, I strongly recommend that you talk to your doctor. Talking to your doctor does not mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're weak. It just means that you need a little bit more help. And I have done that. I'm actually on some antidepressants, which have helped a lot as far as keeping me stable. Um, you might also seek out counseling, which I've also done, and this has also helped. And for those of you who are still like, I don't know if counseling works, one of the really nice things, or one of the things I really appreciate about counseling is that this is a person who's on my side, right? And this is a person who is going to believe me, who is going to listen to me, and they're not going to judge. They're not going to tell me, "Oh, I can't believe that happened," and you're a terrible person, and all of that. Like, their job is to support me, and it's nice to have somebody that I am not going to be afraid to see in public later, right? Because there's this, "Oh, they heard all my deep dark secrets." If they see me in public, what are they going to do? Well, a good counselor is going to completely take the lead from you. So if you see them at the mall or you see them at whatever, a good counselor is, they might acknowledge you, but if you don't actively say hi, if you don't approach them, that kind of thing, then that's probably all that's going to happen. Meditation can be very good. Things like yoga can be very good, where they're very calming. The meditation, there are so many ways to meditate. You can do a flame meditation where you light a candle and you lose yourself in the flame. You can do a meditation where you're just just in a quiet space and you kind of let your thoughts flow in and flow out, but you're not holding on to anything and you're not focusing on anything specific. You're just kind of letting it go. You can do affirmations. And this sounds silly, but an affirmation is basically, and I had to do this for a while. This is probably 10 or 15 years ago. I remember doing a meditation a few times, multiple times, and I was just telling myself, "You are a good person." And I would just sit there and say, "You are a good person. You are a good person. You are a good person." And this helped because sometimes I think we're harder on ourselves than we are on anybody else. And we need to be nice to ourselves. We need other things that work. Going and getting a manicure, pedicure, maybe getting waxed. I kind of like the whole wax thing. Not so much because the pain kind of sucks, but just that I'm doing something for myself in order to do something for myself. You might go and get your hair cut, colored and dyed are the same thing, but you might get a new haircut, you might get it dyed, you might I don't know, do some crazy hairstyle, fun thing. Tattooing can be beneficial for me, anyway. Um, it's completely up to you, and if you are under the age of 18, I am going to tell you, please wait on getting a tattoo. Please, okay? I find them therapeutic, and I find them good for marking big events in my life. But if you are under the age of 18, I strongly recommend that you wait because you're going to be more impulsive when you're younger. And things that sound like they would be really good might not be. Additionally, it's harder to find people who are willing to do their art on your skin. And so the people that you end up with may not be very talented. and you could end up with a like total tattoo failure. Uh, if you choose to get tattooed, I strongly recommend that you do it in a place that can be easily hidden, so that if you are trying to do like a straight job, I guess, you can go in, you can look professional, and they're not gonna be judging you, because people still judge about your tattoos. They do, right? Um, and you want to make sure that you're able to cover it to be professional, because there are some places, even some fast food restaurants and some sit down restaurants, where if you have tattoos, you have to cover them. They're not going to let you serve people with your tattoos exposed. There are other places that I actually think are more fun, where people get to show their tattoos, they get to show their piercings. But you got to be cautious, right? You don't want to do things when you're young that are going to limit your options in the future. All right, that is it for today. I don't know if any of this stuff helped or any of my tips are things that you can actually use, but it's kind of it's a process. Figuring out what works for you is a process. And if the stuff that I have recommended doesn't work for you, that's okay. It is totally okay. I would say give each method like a genuine try if you're looking for something um, in order to help you deal with your stress. Um, give it a genuine try. Actually do it, and don't just dismiss it out of hand and say nope, 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 nope. That's totally not going to work for me. Um, but it's definitely trial and error. Finding the methods that work for you are trial and error, and your most comfortable methods that are working for you may change over time. Okay, and that's also okay. It truly is. I used to do flame meditations on a fairly regular basis. I would do the positive affirmations, but those are methods that um, they aren't working really for me now. So now I might go outside and spend some time in the sun. I might, since I have the destruction project, I might beat on the concrete because it is very physically exhausting. I may read, I may practice my Spanish, I may learn something, right? Because as I said, learning for me really engages and it helps. Okay. Oh, video games. Video games are kind of fun. I really enjoy playing Fallout, which I've mentioned before. I have also enjoyed Silent Hill, and sometimes just going in and wailing on a bunch of bad guys in a fictional realm does it. Sometimes that's all you need. I also do RPGs. I have a group of friends that we all get together online and we kind of geek out and we pretend that we're other characters and we have some skills and some people try to break it and some people talk a lot. Other yeah, but it's an opportunity to pretend, right? When I was younger, so in middle school and high school, my stress response, my coping with stress thing was doing a lot of fantasy reading, so like Anne McCaffrey. I would also do some sci-fi reading. I would Dean Koontz, so it's kind of like low-level horror. Christopher Pike, I read a ton of his stuff. I read ElfQuest, and these were all things that were done well enough for me to be able to insert myself into those stories and to kind of forget about what was happening around me that was completely out of my control. All right, so a lot of times, well, I don't even want to generalize a lot of times, but I do want to say that when we're under stress, some of the stress comes from the uncertainty, right? It comes from things that we can't control. It comes from things that we don't like that are happening. And kind of recognizing that we are not in control of these things and that we can't do anything about some of the stuff that's there can be very powerful. So, if you're a teenager, it's okay. There are a lot of things that you're not going to be able to control, but you can still do things in order to be happy. All right. Now, I also want to talk about why it's important to find healthy ways of dealing with your stress. And that is because if you don't have a healthy way of dealing with it, you may end up resorting to something that is actually going to make things worse for you. And I am speaking of drug or alcohol use, suicide, and suicide ideation, self harm. These two things are connected, but one does not mean the other is happening. So if you have somebody who is self harming, um, it could be because they feel like they have no other way of dealing with their stress, that they don't have a safe place to be. So they're having a rough time at school, but they're also having a rough time at home. They may feel like they don't have anybody to talk to. Um, it is a coping mechanism. Unfortunately, it's not a very healthy one, and people who rely on it will tend to escalate, right? Much like drug use. Uh, the first time they do it, they may get relief from whatever it is that's bothering them. It may allow them to release some pent up emotions. But in order to continue to get that release, they may have to hurt themselves more and more, which is not something we want to promote. But it's also not something that we want to judge. We don't want to call people who are cutting terrible people. We don't want to say, why are you so weak? We don't want to say, why would you do that? Or that you're just attention seeking. We got to be supportive and recognize that something is not right, and that if somebody has resorted to self harm, then additional help definitely is indicated. Additional help. Okay, so if you can't offer that help, then help them get to someone who can. So this would be their doctor. This would be a trusted adult, perhaps. This could be a counselor or like a DBT program, that type of thing to help them cope. Okay. This is the Fat Health Teacher. I wanted to talk about stress today because yesterday, just wow. So we had the shooting. We had in New Mexico, we had another shooting, and it appeared to be domestic violence oriented. It was a mother, we believe, and her 4 children. We had somebody arrested in LA with bomb and other stuff that was planning on going to a pride parade because this is Gay Pride Month. Um, yeah, these are all things that can stress you out, and this is on top of all the stuff that you're already dealing with. So I encourage you to do the trial and error, figure out what's working for you, and hopefully you pick something that is a healthy response in order to allow you to process your stress so that you can move on. This is the Fat Health Teacher signing out. Good luck. Have a great rest of the day, and I will see you tomorrow.